Look, I know what it feels like to wake up and not want to move, to have dreams sitting in your chest so heavy they almost suffocate you, but still feel too tired, too unmotivated, too overwhelmed to take the next step. Everybody talks about wanting success, growth, healing, greatness, but nobody talks about the battle happening inside when your mind tries to negotiate with your potential. That's where the real fight is. Not out there, but in here with yourself. The truth is simple. If you only work when you feel like it, you will never get anywhere worth going. The people who rise, the people who build, the people who change their whole life, they don't rely on feelings. They rely on discipline, on commitment, on showing up even on the days when everything in them says, not today. Today, I want to talk to you about this battle. Why forcing yourself to do the hard things, especially when you don't feel like it, is the key that separates those who dream from those who actually live those dreams. We'll break it down into 5 real powerful truths, back with stories and examples that will hit you where you live. Let's get into it. Your feelings are going to shift on you every single day, and that's why you can't depend on them to build anything real. One day you wake up ready to take over the world, and the next day you feel like you don't even want to get out of bed. That's human, that's normal, but it can't be the steering wheel of your life. You can't let something that unstable guide where you're trying to go, because the truth is, your feelings might be temporary, but the future you're building is permanent, and every decision you make right now is shaping that future, whether you feel ready or not. Think about the people who operate at the highest levels: athletes, fighters, creators, anybody who's locked into a vision. They don't show up because every day feels good. They show up because they understand that the work they do today is an investment in who they become tomorrow. A sprinter doesn't say, I'm not feeling it today, and skip training. A boxer doesn't stay home because his body aches, because the person waiting to knock him out isn't checking to see if he slept enough. The world doesn't pause because you're tired. Opponents don't pause. Opportunities don't pause. Life keeps moving, and you either keep moving with it or you get left behind. And your future doesn't care about your mood either. It doesn't care if you're irritated today, or if someone says something that threw you off, or if you're drained. Your future's built off actions, not feelings. That's the part that hurts to accept, but that's where your power is. You're not always going to feel like getting up early to work on your dream. You're not always going to feel inspired to put in extra hours. You're not always going to feel strong enough to push through the weight of everything on your shoulders. But the people who win aren't the ones who feel the best. They're the ones who move anyway. When you learn to act independent of your emotions, you unlock a different level of strength. You stop being controlled by your mood and start being powered by your purpose. There's a huge difference between the two. Purpose gives you consistency. Mood gives you inconsistency, excuses, and delays. Most people let their emotions talk them out of their greatness long before life ever does. They wait for motivation to magically show up, not realizing that motivation is just a spark. It's discipline that keeps the fire burning. Greatness doesn't happen when everything feels right. Greatness happens when you build habits so strong, they don't need your permission. They don't wait for your mood to cooperate. They don't wait for the perfect day. They don't pause because you're frustrated or heartbroken or tired. Habits take over when your feelings check out, and that's the shift you need if you want to create a life that's bigger than the moment you're stuck in. Look back at your own life. Think about every time you pushed through something you didn't feel like doing. Maybe it was studying for a test when you were exhausted. Maybe it was going to work when your whole body was screaming for rest. Maybe it was showing up for someone you care about even though you were dealing with your own struggles. Every time you pushed through, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than your feelings want you to believe. Those moments probably shaped you more than the easy ones ever did. Most people fail not because they don't have the talent or the resources, but because they're waiting to feel right before they start. They think they need inspiration to take action, but the truth is the action creates the inspiration. When you start, even when it feels uncomfortable, something clicks. Your mind realizes you're serious. Your spirit wakes up. Momentum builds, and suddenly you start feeling the motivation that you were waiting for in the beginning. That's why forcing yourself to start, no matter what your emotions say, is one of the most powerful skills you can build. Imagine your life like a building. Your feelings are like the weather: wind, rain, heat, cold, always changing. But your habits are the bricks you lay every day. If you build on weather, your foundation collapses. If you build on discipline, your foundation becomes unshakable. There's a reason some people can handle pressure, chaos, stress, setbacks, and still keep going. They didn't build their life on how they felt. They built it on what needed to be done. Let's be real. Sometimes you're not tired, you're uninspired. Sometimes you're not overwhelmed, you're just avoiding discomfort. Sometimes you're not unmotivated. You're scared of failing, scared of being judged, scared of not being good enough. But instead of sitting with those truths, you let your emotions disguise themselves as excuses. And excuses feel comfortable, but they build nothing. The day you decide that your future is more important than your feelings, your entire life changes. You start moving differently. You start thinking differently. You start showing up differently. Because you realize that discipline doesn't kill your freedom, it creates it. Every time you push past your emotions, you're teaching your mind that you run the show. Not your fear, not your doubt, not your laziness, not your mood. And the crazy part is, once you get used to pushing yourself, it becomes part of you. What used to be hard becomes normal. What used to intimidate you becomes routine. What used to drain you becomes something you barely think about. That's the transformation people talk about when they say they leveled up. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's repeating the hard things until they're no longer hard. So remind yourself every morning that feelings are temporary. They rise, they fall, they shift. But what you build from consistency, from discipline, from showing up, those are the things that last. Those are the things your future self will thank you for. And when you catch yourself waiting for the right feeling to hit before you act, remember this. The future you want is waiting on the work you avoid. And the only way to reach it is to keep moving, especially on the days you'd rather stay still. People hear the word discipline and instantly think about restriction, limits, rules, pressure. They think it's a thing that boxes you in, cuts off your fun, steals your freedom. But that's only how it feels when you're looking at it from the outside. Once you actually live it, once you start practicing it, you realize discipline is the exact opposite. Discipline is the key that unlocks the kind of freedom most people will never taste because they keep running from the very thing that would set them free. You ever see somebody who's drowning financially, bills stacking up, credit maxed out, no savings, no breathing room? They feel completely trapped. Their whole life gets controlled by money because they don't have enough of it. Every decision becomes about surviving, not living. But the crazy part is this. The moment they start applying discipline, real discipline, things start shifting. They create a budget, they stick to it, they cut back on things they don't need. They stop trying to impress people. At first it feels tight, uncomfortable, even embarrassing. But with every small sacrifice, they start buying back their freedom. Suddenly they're not worrying every night. They're not scared every time their phone rings. They have choices again. That's discipline turning into freedom right in front of them. It's the same with your body, your health, your energy. Someone decides they want to get in shape, and the first few weeks feel like punishment. Waking up early feels impossible. The workouts feel like torture. Their body hurts, their mind is yelling at them to quit, but they keep pushing, not because they feel good, but because they made a decision. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and one day something shifts. They wake up with energy instead of exhaustion. They feel proud instead of insecure. Their clothes fit better, their confidence goes up. People start asking if they've been doing something different. That moment of freedom, the freedom to move without pain, to feel good in their own skin, to trust their own discipline. That moment was purchased with months of showing up when it was uncomfortable. That's the part people don't understand. Freedom isn't given, freedom is earned. And the currency is discipline. Every moment you force yourself to do the hard thing, even when every part of you wants to take the easy way out, you're making an investment in your future. Every time you choose long-term growth over short-term pleasure, you're stacking bricks for a life you'll be proud to live. Most people never get to that point because they let the moment trick them. The moment says, just relax. Do it later. It's not that serious. You're tired, you deserve a break. And sometimes that's true, but most of the time, it's just your comfort zone negotiating with your potential. You can't let the moment steal what the future's trying to give you. Discipline is the bridge that carries you from who you are to who you want to become. Without it, you stay stuck in loops, making progress, falling back, starting again, quitting again. Nothing changes because nothing is sustained. But with discipline, even slow progress becomes guaranteed success. It's like planting seeds every day. The results don't show up immediately, but one day the garden is full and everybody thinks it happened overnight. They don't see the mornings you didn't want to get up. They don't see the nights you worked when you could have slept. They don't see the sacrifices you made while they were comfortable. But you see it, you feel it, you know what it costs. A lot of people say they want freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, time freedom. But when you ask them what they're doing to build it, the room gets quiet. They're living without structure, spending without intention, acting without a plan, hoping things magically change. But hope is not a strategy. Wishing is not a plan. You get freedom by doing the disciplined things no one wants to do. The truth is, discipline doesn't take away your life. It gives your life back to you. It gives you control over your decisions, your habits, your time, your direction. Think about someone who wakes up early on purpose, works out on purpose, builds their business on purpose, chooses their friends on purpose. That person isn't controlled by life. They're directing it. Meanwhile, someone without discipline wakes up late, rushes through the day, reacts to problems, fights fires, feels overwhelmed, and wonders why everything feels hard. One person is living by design. The other is living by default. It all comes down to discipline. And here's where the emotional part hits. Discipline isn't always going to feel good. Some days it'll break you down. Some days you'll cry through it. Some days you'll feel like you're not seeing results fast enough. Some days you'll want to quit everything. But on the days you push through, even when your heart is heavy and your mind is tired, that's when you're rewiring your identity. You're becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. You're becoming someone who shows up for their own future. That's powerful. A lot of people think freedom is doing whatever you want. But that's how people end up stuck. Stuck in bad habits. Stuck in unhealthy cycles. Stuck in situations they hate. Real freedom is being able to choose your path, not be controlled by your impulses. Real freedom is waking up with options. Real freedom is knowing you build something so solid you don't have to live in fear every day. And the only path to that kind of freedom is discipline. Every decision you make today is either building your freedom or building your prison. Every time you push yourself, you gain strength. Every time you avoid the easy route, you gain clarity. Every time you keep going, even when it's hard, you gain power. And over time, the discipline you hated becomes the peace you live in. The structure you resisted becomes a success you're known for. The sacrifices you made become the blessings you enjoy. So don't avoid discipline. Don't resent it. Don't think of it as a cage. Think of it as your ticket out. Think of it as your way forward. Think of it as the quiet work that pays off louder than any excuse you could give. Your future is waiting on you to choose the hard things now so it can give you the good things later. People love to picture change as this dramatic moment, a big breakthrough, fireworks going off. A once-in-a-lifetime shift that suddenly fixes everything. But real life doesn't work like that. Change doesn't show up with a spotlight. Change sneaks in quietly through tiny decisions you make when nobody's watching. It's built in those moments where it doesn't even feel like anything happened. One healthier meal, one page read, $1 saved, one workout finished, one small promise kept. By itself, none of those things look like much. They don't look powerful enough to move your life in any direction. But that's exactly the illusion. The small things don't hit you all at once. They stack and they stack and they stack until the weight of all those tiny wins becomes a force strong enough to change your entire life. Think about a person who decides to eat clean for one day. Nothing happens. There's no physical transformation, no compliments, no proof that the decision mattered. So most people quit. But imagine they didn't. Imagine they gave it 90 days instead of one. Suddenly their skin is clearer, their energy is higher, their clothes fit different, their mood is steady. All those tiny meals added up into something big, something visible. That's the power of small wins. They hide in the beginning, but they show up in the end. Same thing with studying. You won't become an expert from reading a few pages in one night. But what if you read a few pages every night for a year? You know more than half the people who cram only when they felt like it. A degree is earned 1 hour at a time, not in one heroic burst of motivation. Or saving money. Putting away a few dollars feels pointless. It doesn't change anything in the moment. You don't feel richer. But stack that same amount every week, every month, every year, and suddenly you built something that gives you peace, options, confidence. You bought freedom with tiny decisions you barely notice at the time. People underestimate the compound effect because the results don't show early. That Harvard study showed exactly that. Doing something consistently for even 10 minutes a day beats doing something for 2 hours once a week. The brain responds better to repetition than intensity. You build stronger habits when the bar is low but constant, rather than high but inconsistent. The world is filled with people who sprint once and quit versus people who jog every day and end up finishing a whole marathon. But here's the hard part. Small wins don't feel exciting. They don't come with applause or trophies. You're not going to post them on social media and get thousands of likes. Nobody celebrates you for drinking water instead of soda, or reading instead of scrolling, or waking up 20 minutes early. Nobody claps for you when you're building a foundation, and that silence is what kills most people's progress. Because we live in a world that rewards loud results, not quiet effort. But quiet effort is where the real transformation happens. Every time you push through and do something, even for 10 minutes, you're building a muscle, not just a physical kind, but a mental and spiritual one. You're telling yourself, I can show up, I can be consistent, I can keep my word. Those moments matter more than the big ones. Everybody can work hard when they're motivated, when they hype, when they're inspired. The real ones are the people who show up when they tired, when they stress, when they don't see progress, when they feel invisible. Those are the people who become unstoppable because they're building momentum quietly. Momentum is a powerful thing. Once it starts rolling, it's hard to stop. You ever push a car that broke down? The first shove is the hardest. It feels impossible. The car barely moves. But keep pushing, keep leaning into it, and eventually the wheels start rolling. Once it starts moving, the same force that barely budged it now keeps it going. That's what small daily wins do. They turn your life from a dead stop into forward motion. And once you're moving, you feel different. Your confidence rises. Your energy shifts. Your identity grows. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. And that's the real magic. The more small wins you stack, the more you believe in yourself. And when you believe in yourself, you stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop needing perfect conditions. You start working because it's who you are, not because it feels good. But success has never been about intensity. It's been about consistency. Anyone can grind for a day. Anyone can push hard for a week. But the person who shows up day after day, no matter how small the effort, that's the person who wins. Because consistency compounds. Consistency multiplies. Consistency builds a life, brick by brick. And let's be honest, you're not always going to feel like it. There will be days you wake up drained, days where stress weighs you down, days where you question everything. But if you can give just 10 minutes on those days, just 10, you're keeping the momentum alive. And momentum is what makes discipline feel less like a fight and more like a rhythm. It becomes a flow, a lifestyle, a part of who you are. Small daily wins don't look powerful in the beginning. They don't give you instant gratification. They don't make your life explode with change overnight. But they are the reason people look back one day and say, I don't even recognize who I used to be. Every great life is built one small decision at a time. That's where the magic lives. That's where the real change happens. Everybody wants to feel like they're in control of their life. Everybody wants to wake up and feel like they're steering the ship, not just drifting wherever the wind pushes them. But the truth hits hard when you look at your own habits. How can you talk about taking control of your life when you can't even take control of your morning? How can you talk about being a leader in your community, in your business, in your family, when you can't even lead yourself into doing the things you said you were going to do? Leadership doesn't start with managing other people. Leadership starts with managing you, your choices, your discipline, your follow through, your word. Most people never talk about this part because it forces you to face yourself. It forces you to admit that the gap between the life you want and the life you have isn't talent, isn't luck, isn't timing. It's self-leadership. It's the ability to guide yourself when nobody is pushing you, nobody is checking on you, nobody is applauding you. It's easy to lead when there's a crowd watching. It's easy to perform when the lights are on, but your real leadership shows up in the dark hours of your life. The mornings when you don't want to get up, the nights when you want to quit, the moments when your mind tries to negotiate with your goals. There was a man who always talked about starting a business. Every conversation he had was full of big dreams, ideas, strategies, visions of what he wanted to build. He had passion, he had potential, he had talent, but he didn't have self-leadership. He couldn't wake up early even though he said he wanted more time. He didn't study the market, even though he said he wanted to be the best. He didn't put in the daily work, even though he said he was committed. His dreams were real, but his discipline wasn't. And that's the dangerous part. Talent without discipline is just wasted potential. Years went by. He watched other people do the things he once talked about. He watched someone with fewer resources, less natural ability, less confidence even, build the very dream he imagined. And he couldn't understand why it wasn't him. But the answer was simple. The other person didn't wait for motivation. They didn't wait for the perfect moment. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They led themselves. They did the work when it was uncomfortable, when it was inconvenient, when they didn't have support. They didn't rely on emotion. They relied on discipline. That's the difference. Leadership isn't about being loud. It's not about directing others. It's not about being the boss. Leadership is about being the person who keeps going when it's easier to stop. Being the person who does the work when nobody else is holding them accountable. Being the person who listens to their future more than their feelings. And until you can do that for yourself, you can't expect life to put you in a position to lead anybody else. Leading yourself means doing what you said you would do even when the excitement is gone. It means keeping promises to yourself with the same loyalty you keep promises to other people. It means showing up on days when you're tired, days when you're stressed, days when nobody even knows you're trying. It means doing the work in silence, knowing that your results will speak louder than anything you could announce. People lose self-respect because they constantly break their own word. They say they're going to wake up early, then hit snooze. They say they're going to work out, then make excuses. They say they're going to start the project, then scroll their phone instead. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you chip away at your own confidence. You teach your mind that your word means nothing. But the opposite is true too. Every time you follow through, even in the smallest ways, your self-respect grows. You start trusting yourself again. You start believing yourself. You start building momentum. Once you respect yourself, your life becomes easier to lead. You don't fight with yourself as much. You don't negotiate with your excuses. You don't wait on motivation to carry you. You give yourself orders and you follow through. Your mind starts to shift from "can I do this" to "of course I can." Confidence doesn't come from talking about what you'll do. Confidence comes from proving to yourself that you can do the things you promise. And the people around you feel that. When you lead yourself, your energy changes. You stop complaining. You stop blaming. You start waiting. You start doing. You start moving differently. You start attracting opportunities instead of chasing them. Not because you're lucky, not because you're special, but because you're consistent. You've built a foundation where your actions aren't controlled by your mood. You built stability within yourself. Everybody wants to lead a big life, but very few people want to start with the small things. They want to run a company, but can't keep their room clean. They want financial freedom, but can't manage $50 0 cents. They want respect, but don't respect their own routines. They want success, but skip the unglamorous steps. Life doesn't work like that. You don't get to jump to the top level of leadership if you haven't mastered level 1, leading yourself. Every great achievement starts with self-discipline. Every dream requires a stronger version of you. Every opportunity demands someone who can show up, not someone who can only talk about showing up. And once you learn how to lead yourself, your mornings, your habits, your decisions, your energy, you unlock the ability to lead your entire life. And from there, everything else starts falling into place. You stop drifting. You stop waiting. You stop wishing. You start directing your path with intention, focus, and clarity. Because leadership isn't something given to you. It's something you earn, one disciplined act at a time. Think about this for a second. There's a version of you that already exists in the future. A version of you that's stronger, wiser, more stable, more successful, more fulfilled. A version of you that overcame everything you're facing right now. That version of you is real. They're waiting for you. And every choice you make today is either guiding you toward them or pulling you away. That's why you can't move like your life doesn't have weight. You can't make decisions based only on how you feel in a moment. You can't let temporary emotions decide the future you're going to live in. You've got to move like someone is counting on you, because they are. Your future self is watching every move you make, and they're hoping you don't give up on them. It's easy to think you have time. Easy to tell yourself you'll start next week, next month, when life settles down, when the motivation kicks in. But 5 years will pass, whether you're building or not. 5 years will pass, whether you stay committed or keep making excuses. And when that time comes, you're going to meet the result of your choices. You're going to meet the version of yourself you built. The question is, will you be proud of them? Will you look that version of you in the eye and say, I fought for you when it was hard? Or will you feel that quiet sting, the one that whispers, I could have done more? Picture it clearly. Imagine walking into a room and seeing your future self sitting there. Maybe they're living in a home you always dreamed of. Maybe they're healthy, confident, financially free. Maybe they're surrounded by peace instead of chaos. They look at you with gratitude because they know every early morning, every hour of study, every dollar saved, every workout when you didn't want to go, that's what gave them the life they're living. That version of you would grab your shoulders and say, thank you. Thank you for not quitting on me. But now imagine the opposite. You walk into that same room, and instead of pride, all you see is regret. That version of you looks worn down,